Let's start with a brief update on your Pleiadian contact. What happened since our interview?
Yeah, I love starting off with this question, Alexander. You probably know, because you follow me around, that she has shown up for me. It was probably within 10 days after the interview. I don't remember when, but it's fairly recently, right? So I had her etheric presence, to my right at my, 5 o'clock position, very palpable. Her energy is very distinct. And this was happening before bed. And then throughout the following days, I could feel her in the morning when I woke up. And it just really very healing for the child aspect, like the small child part of me that was cut off from connecting with her back at Montauk. Like if you recall, I'm reaching for her, and in that moment, they're slamming the tech and ripping me back into, that reality, and contact is not made. And for a child that's being so abused like that, like brutally and horrifically abused, like this was like everything to me to be with her. So anyway, long story short, she's been back around, and mostly what I am, it's not so much that I need to have a conversation with her, but it's that there's an energetic resonance. It's very healing to that damaged part from Montauk. Yeah. She said we've always been with you. We've always been with you. Mm-hmm. And this refers to, I think, a larger confederation, which I have an avatar on a light ship that's always been up there. And it doesn't surprise me at all. She's not from the same ship that I'm on currently, but it's part of a larger consortium. I do understand that. So it's been, it's not, I don't feel like, I have to get big messages for her for the public. This is more of a private relationship. And okay. It's always, for me, when I meet new beings, I sit with their energy for a long time, because that's the way I get to know them and trust them. So it's not about how they look, but it's about an energetic, reading the energetic patterning through the field, that I come to understand who it is and what their intentions are. And that's true of any new, and it's probably true of all the new humans I meet too, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go to the next one. You talked about being sent to a Russian base and a Pleiadian ship with your handlers demanding that you get the code. Does it mean that they knew to which place and time they need to send you for a specific task? And if yes, how do they know that? How can they direct one's consciousness to send it to a specific timeline or time place?
Yeah, you got a few questions in there at once, but I think I've got them distilled. Yeah, so it's a really good question. So they are using me as a psychic, and I'm the one who's finding the target. So back in my era, the programs back in the 70s, they would use a lot. I've been drugged and hypnotized more times than I can recall, right? Okay. So they would get me in a hypnotic state and tell me what I was supposed to look for. And it would be up to me in the silver bullet, locate the target. This is you. It's on me to figure it out. So remember that I'm a psychic child within this whole scenario. So does that make some sense?
So basically, they task you, but you're self-directed. You basically know where to go energetically, but they
tell me, yeah, basically what do I need to find? Right. And it's all through the field of consciousness. So there's really no limit there. Yeah.
And it's funny because they sort of leave it up to you to find stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, but remember, I'm 100% mastered and controlled being. I have no autonomy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that they also take chances with this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the point I was gonna, excuse me, I'm talking over you. I was gonna say, remember Montauk too is all about, it's highly experimental. Everything is about trial. They move through the silver bullet is only one iteration of a time travel machine, right? So we had the Montauk chair is much more famous as a vehicle to get the viewer into the future. Mm-hmm. And then we can talk about the chronovisor and, at Montauk too, they were also, a lot of this was about mind fracturing technology. I think I mentioned in the last video, this isn't about just finding somewhere in the future and checking it out. This is about fucking up the person that they're working on, to split them and fragment their psyche.
Okay. Can they see and hear what goes on? Or do you pass that on to them? Can they see like in real time, maybe on a screen or somewhere?
Oh, yeah. I'm wired into the tech. So through the silver bullet, I am wired into their data capture technology. So it's coming through my consciousness again, but it's being fed back into their computer, let's say. So they can't quite see what I'm seeing, but the data is incoming to them.
Okay.
And this is where it also gets pretty interesting, because I don't know if we got into this much in the last video, but what I recall over and over very strongly within these recalls in the silver bullet is that I'm actively attempting to block the relay of information. So that's quite compelling to me, that I could be possibly even attempting that, given how drugged and tortured I am in the situation. That's some monumental heroism, in my view, from a 6-year-old kid going, no way, you're not getting this information. So yeah, I mean, I'm always tapped back into their machinery, their equipment.
All right. Someone wants to know about the SSP medical tech. Do you remember anything specific, or do you maybe remember being in one, being regressed?
Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah, the medical tech. I think the question maybe was like a regen tank, and I have to say clear here that I don't have strong memory of regen tanks, but they cloned me over and over and over, which is, you know, I wouldn't call cloning exactly a medical technology. That was absolutely what I remember of my own experience. Regen tank, I know, is, you know, there was a really fierce battle. We were ambushed at the Mars base one night by mantids in a larger group, and I had my leg blown off. It was the worst battle memory that I have, probably, which has given me PTSD for years, which I'm finally recovering from. But I don't know, my memory goes blank, just turns into a black field after that. And I don't know if they were able to regen me completely with a new leg after that, or if they used a backup clone. Again, yeah, I don't have a ton of info on the regen tank, or what I want to say is that I don't have firsthand memory of that.
All right.
But I know with a regen tank, you can't, after a while, like if I've got a limb blown off or something, they stick me in that, I keep doing it, it degrades cellular biology, like the atomic structure and the molecular bonds start to break down. So you can't keep doing it. There's a finite capacity. As amazing as that tech is, I think there's a limit to
what you're saying is exactly what Randy Kramer said. That
is that right?
Despite them having, you know, a med bed, what he calls a med bed, was something like a holographic resonance frequency chamber or apparatus. He said that despite all of that, they would be regenerated over and over and over, and after the tour of duty was finished, they had to be put in a cloned body and sent back. So he is what he is claiming now in a cloned body. And you know, you would wonder, like, if the tech is so magical, why use a cloned body? Because you can just regenerate someone and send them back. But he said that the body is still very broken despite all the capacity of that tech. So
yeah, well, so too, I think technology over time, like I was sent to Mars in '82, right? So things have come a long way since then. I'm wondering if it's a little different. You know, we can talk about the time, you know, we can talk about the silver bullet, that's 70s tech. Like how many years later now, decades later, what do we got going as far as time tech? So that's all pretty interesting, how the technology has evolved over the decades, right? Especially as in collusion with other ET races, which really gave us the tech. Right.
So all you remember is basically when you're injured or something happens, just being back on somewhere without
in a consciousness field. Like there's always a clear sense of my consciousness migrating through a clone body.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a very there's a distinct feeling of otherness with that. That's a little bit disconcerting in a way. But yeah, that's the main things that I remember. And you know, back in Montauk, when we described the silver bullet, part of what it's always felt to me that they were doing was splitting the etheric body from the physical body, the etheric body being the sort of energetic armature upon which biology responds. Like it has an etheric body, we don't have physical form. But if you can take that etheric body, isolate it, and keep it that way, you can continue to grow biology on it. And that's how that's one way of making a clone. There's a lot of different ways to make a clone. It depends what, the cloning thing is pretty profound in a way, because if you want to clone just to do a couple of battles and be spent, you can make it a lot faster. If you want to build out a weaponized asset and trade it in the slave trade and have it be durable for a good many years, you're going to want to take a different approach to cloning. So I think that's also pretty interesting.
Right. So there may be different kinds, different grades of clones available. Yeah. Next question is about the Nordics and tall white, positive versus negative. Some say there are many negative ones. What do you know about this? How do you, I guess people want to know, like when we hear the accounts, how do we distinguish who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
Right. Well, isn't that the age-old question here in this polarized reality?
Right.
I have to say, again, just taking it, I want to take every question answer it based on my own personal experience. So I don't have experience with negative Nordics. So I'm not the person, maybe I'm not the best person to speak on that. I'm sure they exist.
And Nordic is such a broad term. It's like, it's like saying an earthling or a white person.
I think it's illustrative of a point where we're diverging from that kind of thinking. Like this whole group is good, this whole group is bad. That's the essence of moving beyond the polarized field of consciousness.
Exactly. Have you ever seen a timeline with a zombie apocalypse?
I'm sorry. I've not seen a timeline with this zombie apocalypse, but I have seen, so doing some readings for clients, I have seen, this is relevant to the question, hang on. I have seen guys who were taken through the astral at night and being trained for an Armageddon timeline, which is somewhat similar. It's not a zombie apocalypse, but it's definitely an apocalypse. And these guys, they wake up and they're bruised. They're not rested. They don't know what happened to them. It's going on and on and on for months. And this is a really, I would say, when we talk about the programs evolving over time in the SSP and what they're able to do, taking people through the astral and training them every night is I think that's in some ways that's become more sophisticated in recent times. So that's what I would add about that. It's quite nefarious, in fact.
And what's the scenario?
They're being trained as soldiers to fight. So let's broaden the context. Assuming that the cabal and the elite get what they want and turn this planet into a real prison planet with a bunch of, mind-controlled slaves as humans running around down here, they have these soldiers as backup to make sure that timeline comes to a completion. We're not going there, but that is one of the designs. Like, hey, what happens if we build this out? How far can we go with this? It's always experimental. Do you even believe we're sitting here having this conversation? I mean, this is so wild.
It's
like,
crazy.
Where are we?
I think all of this is very strange. Like I woke up one morning and I've been listening to this for like, I don't know, 8, maybe 10 years. And I just woke up one morning recently and I told myself, all of this is very strange. Not because it's exotic, it's ET, but just the scenarios. It's so far out. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it's really far out. And so for people who are like having trouble getting on board with stuff, this line of thinking and this reality, I get it. I would not ever have believed this if I hadn't gotten my memories back and understood that this happened.
Right, exactly. Okay, what is light language and how do you use it in your work?
That's a nice question, eh? From the zombie apocalypse to the light language.
Right.
Well, I like it. Awesome. So light language is really a communication from the quantum field. It's from the stars. Shall I bring some through? Wow, it's coming. So that runs like a faucet through my life. And it's something I woke up to about 8 years ago. channeling in my sleep, but it's a frequency, right, that bypasses the human conceptual mind and relates directly with the heart, the higher self, your energetics as a human. So this seems to be coming in as a phenomena for more and more people to get us out of this, the cognitive analytical mind that's going in overdrive, and to communicate with a deeper level of human consciousness. And so that comes through all of my one-on-one sessions with clients. And what it does for me is allows me to downstep higher energy, and also elevates my field, my frequency, let's say, so I can continue on as a clear channel. And it's so based in the heart. Like all of that little bit that came through is like resonating through this area. It's so about the higher field of love and a kind of unity consciousness.
Is this a real language that be intelligible or translated into human words? Or is it just, I don't know, energetic vibrational template that comes through as
it's
sound,
a little bit of both.
sound?
Yeah. Well, I can say more on that. It's a non-linear language, and everybody's light language will be a little bit different. And I have a few different, I don't know, we could call dialects. That doesn't always sound the same.
Right.
There's little differences in different languages depending on what's coming through for me or for a client. So in my case, I can understand, like, it's like I got a data packet and I can understand the general gist of what's being offered through the language, but it's never going to be meant to be a linear word for word or sound for sound kind of translation. It's meant to really bypass that. Yeah.
So it's like a vibratory resonance that you pass. And the reason it comes out with sound is that it also impacts, our body and the person and everything. Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Would you say that what they call speaking in tongues in church is the same thing?
I am curious about that. I think back in the day, it was, we called it speaking in tongues. And, and now I am not 100% on that, but I really feel like there's something to that. Because it's not a brand new phenomena. It's just that we have a word for it now. We call it light language.
Yeah, they used to call it the language of the angels, the tongue of the angels, which is what we call angels now, is the higher vibrational, higher, dimensional beings, basically. That's interesting. Someone wants to know who of the SSP veterans do you keep in touch with? Have you met anyone here with whom you've served in the SSP?
I'm going to leave that first part alone. That's private information. The second one, however, absolutely have met, two things coming up. I can say that the first one easily, Jean-Charles Moyen, before he knew my story, he contacted me and said, I've seen you several times at night on a Galactic Confederation ship. I know you know me and I know you. And I think that bears out. Are you familiar with Jean-Charles?
Yes. Somewhat, yeah.
So there's that. He's overlapped with a number of people. And the other guy that I know he's only come to me through the etheric realm psychically, but it was my lab twin from Mars. We were bonded when we were 9 at a Great Lakes Naval Station north of Chicago. Before we were sent to Mars, we were kept in cages and trauma bonded. In hideous ways. This is probably the topic of another video. It's a pretty long story, but he has come to me. The first contact he made was, I think, 2 years ago. And a lot of memory came back with that. So periodically I kind of hear from him. He's not doing well. It's a pretty sad story, but it's a true story that the trauma bonding is a thing taken out of Nazi Germany. And straight out of the Illuminati playbook. So there's a lot to that and why they do it. What's the point of having this team that is built on love, trauma, and ultimately betrayal? So a little bit of a tangent there with your question, but that's one of the most poignant relationships that I could possibly
So you don't really talk to him in the here and now, right?
No, he's not well enough for that. He's not doing well with his memories coming back, let's say.
I see. Wow. So he's coming to you, what, unconsciously? He doesn't know that he is, or? I
would say higher self.
Oh, he's higher. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. Interesting. So Jean-Charles Moyen would be one that you met in the physical. And he identified you, but you don't. Do you remember him also?
I don't remember faces very well, honestly.
Okay.
I have a really hard time with that. Even with Dean, my twin, I have a full like photographic picture of him, but his face in my memories is all pixelated.
This
It's
is the
pretty
way,
cruel in
and
a
this
way.
is the way it's meant to be, right? I mean, it was designed to be.
Yeah.
All right. Someone's asking, what's the difference between us and the fourth density people? Are there any of them on Earth? Are they all positive, or do they vary just like we do?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Wow. So 4D means different things to different people. I often think about it as like the proving ground, the purgatory between 3D and 5D. 5D being like a more unified consciousness field, and the frequency of really pure love at 5D, where there's no more, we move beyond polarity. So 4D being more elevated in consciousness and awareness than we are, obviously, but not yet at that threshold of 5D. They're still, what I would say is like they're still sorting out at 4D, they're still sorting out that sort of polarized mental scape. We're struggling maybe with the question of service to self, service to other, and just sorting things out. It's an evolutionary pathway. So we could say, we could take this back to the Nordics. You know, could you have an upper dimensional group, that upper dimensional meaning 4D is above 3D in the scheme, but
Right.
Could you have a 4D group that's in service to self? Absolutely. They can be, we could take the Greys as an example. You know, they have enormous telepathic ability, enormous technological capacity, higher consciousness in some ways, but they have chosen, it's a matter of free will, to use it in a different way. It's not toward an elevated light field or a loving consciousness, it's service to self. So I would also say that when we talk about, you know, do 4D beings exist right now among humans, we become 4D when we are in meditation, expanding our awareness, expanding our heart, expanding our mind, expanding our whole field, right? We begin to step into 4D. We evolve into that space kind of through our own development, right? So we can be in that reality now. We're in a really, in 3D here, we're very much in the separated from source reality. And slowly that's beginning to shift. And it's a necessary place in our trajectory, but yeah, 4D is not some, it's not a faraway place that we can't get to ourselves, that only belongs to these other beings. Does that make sense to you, Alexander?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically we are having this cosmic wave of energy that is giving us this environment that is basically 4D already. And it's a matter of choice now. We can step into it. So it's like a matter of shifting of your focus, you know, whether you want to be more limited or more, you know, aware. The more aware you are, the more 4D you are, basically. So we slip in and out of it like probably several times a day.
Yeah.
So yeah, positive, negative people, you know, can be in 4D and still figure out stuff. They can be very dominating and negative if they choose so. They can also, you know, enjoy all the perks, so to speak, of 4D, you know, being telepathic, being, you know, having all this technology and ability to have, you know, resonance technology and all kinds of stuff. Okay, about Ukraine, do you have any sense of when the conflict could end?
Oh, tough one. This is a delicate topic. You know, I did a little read on this about, I don't know, 5 days ago. I can tell you what I've seen now. As far as the conflict ending, that is like, when I was in the psychic reading, it was like a slippery fish in my hand. I mean, it was so, because I can tell there's so much shifting right now. You know, what was happening yesterday is shifting what's happening today. And it's kind of, I was shown a graph of like this, kind of these up and downs and like almost like a EKG. And then at some point there was this big blast, and then this little fluttery motion, and then this flat line. And I heard that a celebration comes in the time of flowers. It felt really hot to me and warm and cozy, like warm, like summer. Like my sense was like the height of summer was when this big spike in the action graph, let's say, was occurring. And what I really noticed too, and like I said, this was just a quick quick read on this, but reading the energetics psychically was like the whole the NATO side of things and all of that was like fraught with like distortion, confusion, these conflicts of interest and butting heads and just this mess of strategy that was so muddy. But then when I looked at the Russia side, it was like so clear. The strategy got more and more precise as time went by. I mean, we could say it's still a little confusing what's going on there, but I could see through this, at least from the reading, it looked like the strategy of Russia was not fucking around. You know, it was a clear advantage to me. So, you know, take it or leave it. That's just kind of what I got as a quick read.
Okay. You mean Russia would be willing to go to the end, like would not back down?
It just, whatever they're doing, they have a strategic advantage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. The celebration comes at the time of flowers, meaning the summertime, but we don't know which summer it is, right?
I know, and that's what I was like, come on, guys, can we get more specific? Is this like how long out are we talking about? But I also, that said, you know, I'm not a fortune teller, and I'm always a little leery, especially with a conflict like this there's so many things going on from day to day, and the energetics are shifting so much.
Yeah, you're reading the energy at the time of the reading.
Yeah.
But not like long term, because long term it changes and jumps all the time.
It does change.
Right.
And it's also dependent upon what is mass consciousness trying to create out of the mix, right? Like what energy am I or you or anybody projecting on the situation, thus bringing a kind of conclusion to term. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not up to us to decide like what's going to happen. Like it's not up to us to see. You might actually end up in the reality that you saw, but not everybody else. And everybody's experiencing it differently. So there are many ways to look at it. Do you have any information from an off-world source about why Earth is so important on the galactic scale and has been the center of a great conflict for millions of years?
Yeah, it seems like it's been a long time from a human perspective. In the scheme of creation, I'm not sure it's been too long, but yeah. So, you know, Tyrion, who is my mate on the mothership with the Confederation, where I have an avatar, he has always said that the fabric of this quadrant of the galaxy is really the warp and weft of the fabric is all related. So, you know, we have these other races we're talking about. Our destinies are kind of wed. So everybody's interested in what this is a little derogatory, but you know, we're the lowest common denominator in a way, only because we have yet to really harness the power of our own consciousness. And if we're not harnessing it, someone else will. Okay. Clear and simple. Right. So there's a lot of different players, the benevolence and the malevolence going, okay, we're going to get humanity on this track with us, or no, we're going to get them on this track with us. So it has to do with a larger playing field than beyond Earth. Also, we have these luminous gateways inside our bodies, gateways to the cosmos, which are so supercharged, powerful. We don't even know what we have. That's why we're so controllable. And our DNA is so malleable. We have so much. Man, we're not just like hominid, you know, ape DNA. We got all kinds of stuff going on. So there's some back and forth and skirmishes and war around that, you know, people wanting to control our DNA and our destiny. So there's that facet of it too. There's a lot here. I mean, we're much more brilliant and radiant than we think. And we are pregnant potential. We are potential as yet in many ways, I would say. You know, we're coming around to the development of our consciousness, but we are so untapped and in a way unformed. Does that make sense at all to you? Yeah. I also think that we have been very, and understandably so, very Terra-centered, because we only know ourselves for the most part. So we always think that we're the center of attention. We're the center of the battles, but it's actually not like that. I mean, if you look at Earth and you talk to the ETs, they would tell you that, of course, you're important because you're yourself. You're developing. You can only see the world through your eyes. That's why you're so important. Yeah. Self-important, I guess. But it's not like you know, everything is
completely focused on the Earth, and if the Earth falls, the galaxy falls, or if the Earth stands, the galaxy will continue, something like that.
Well, and so too, I mean, that's a really good point, and I would agree with that. That how many is there? A billion other places just like Earth? We don't really know. There's so many other polarity wars that could be going on in other places too that we just don't know about. Yeah.
Rebecca and Mark Demizio say that their mission was planned and known before their birth. Would I be correct in saying that the dark side is not independent in and of itself, but it is an instrument in the general evolutionary plan? Otherwise, how can this all be a planned mission without the unknowns, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say the dark side does play a part in the polarity theater, as I call it. We come in and we take a ticket. Are you going to play on Team Dark or Team Light? Like, we have to have it as a catalyzing eventfulness, right? It has its place in what we're doing. It births us into the next level. Without that, we wouldn't come into that fourth density, right? And on into the fifth density. So, in my view, it's needed for our evolution. Yeah.
So if you can say that you had a mission, so to speak, to play the light, do you think they also have a mission to play the dark as well?
Maybe. Yeah. I'm going to pause and take us back into the other human lifetimes where, I know I played on Team Dark in Atlantis at least once.
Okay.
So, we haven't always been light workers and all of that. Like, if you think you've been a saint and perfect in every lifetime, man, no, you haven't. So I think it's true that they can, it's all, I see it all as expressions of source. So, we're experiencing something without, like, here on Earth, we would say experiencing that darkness is bad. From a higher perspective, you would say is experiencing darkness. You can put a label on it if you want, but as an experience to help you understand a bigger picture or a higher teaching, it might be worthy on the soul journey. Do we all want to sign up for that? No, I really don't want to sign up for another lifetime that's full of torture and abuse, but I think it can have a role in the soul's journey, which is, like, I work in the Akashic records. What are we always looking at? The soul's journey over lifetimes. What are you trying to sort out, man? Yeah.
Right. And also our definition of dark and evil is mostly coming from the 3D perspective. Like, what we consider evil is what can harm us or destroy us. But then if you go higher and you're indestructible and eternal, then the question becomes, why are we doing this? And then maybe because it's interesting, because it's a scenario, to play out. So, and I understand that you've been through stuff that, most of us haven't.
Well, too, though, I want to make the point, too, because if we have people who are new to this kind of information, I don't want to sound flippant, like, hey, it's just all part of what's going on. Are you in pain and suffering and your life sucks right now? Oh, well, it's just part of the thing. But to have, compassion for people where they are on that path and not just so blithely running through and being like, oh, it's just part of the game that we're in right now. So, I can see both perspectives.
Yep. So one of the issues of the disclosure is people's anger towards the powers that be. And in this sense, you seem to have worked through your trauma and are not on the anger frequency. What about the mass consciousness? Do you see any solution for the mass consciousness to be elevated enough to not have this anger frequency, when they find out what's been going on?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I think all of us who are working on our consciousness, that's been such a theme in this conversation, hasn't it? Are helping shift it for the collective. So, it's not just an individual thing that's going on. We as humans are helping make that shift for others who maybe aren't quite ready. And I also have, I have a more hopeful view of that. Also because when something true and real is made visible, something that maybe we've known deep inside our own cellular memory for a long time, and it's divulged, like, we might be a little shocked on the surface at first, but I kind of feel like people are going to recognize it and go, well, geez, okay, finally, what took so long? That's one potential that I see. So I guess I just don't see it as being as crazy, violent, and anger-filled as it could be. And also that we've been, if we look at the trajectory of COVID and all of the really fucked up stuff that's been going on for the last number of years, the chaos field is ratcheted up to astronomical proportions. So what I'm getting at is that people are getting used to everything, like shock, like, wow, I couldn't even believe that happened. And that you kind of become a little bit catatonic, like, oh, so there's a bunch of shape-shifting reptilians creating adrenochrome and raping small children who've been running the planet for a few millennia now, right? Like, oh, okay, big deal. So there could be kind of this response that's just like, hey man, we've seen all of it, this is no big deal. So ETs are real. Okay, I gotta go to work now. Yeah, that's just my take. It's a little bit off track from where you were going with it, but I'm just a little more hopeful about it because it's written inside of us to understand the truth.
Right. What we are talking about now and where we are now, I mean, people who discuss this kind of stuff and experience this kind of stuff is not necessarily what the mass consciousness will be able to see. I mean, you're only allowing yourself to see the things that you're ready to see. So if so if the disclosure, whatever it will be, comes, I don't think that people, the first thing that will come out that is the, all this, intense stuff. People are probably going to just discuss, the something flying in the air or wonder, like, are we alone or not? And,
well, yeah, if we look at what's circulating around on the internet right now, I mean, there's so much of ET stuff that's been ratcheted up, and then we have like, oh, hey, the US is shooting stuff down out of the sky. Is it ETs or spy balloons? We're not really sure. I mean, there's a lot of bait and switch going on. So I think people are, the general public, the sleeping masses are maybe a little more hip to the situation than they have been in the past. Yeah. That's my impression.
Yeah. And not everybody has to, like, know everything at once. So yeah. Okay. Do you maybe want to say something as a feedback to the questions, or maybe, I don't know, anything that you have in your mind right now?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate the questions. They give us an opportunity to go in deeper. Yeah, I want to say to the Russian audience, thank you for, having me on and hanging out with me, even though I don't speak Russian. And for people who are like so open-minded, like the folks on, Australianka, the channel, like, people seem to be really hungry and into this information. That's such a gift right now during this time. And I want to say, for people who are like a little new to this information and they have a lot coming at them all at once and they're kind of going down the rabbit hole, as we say, thank you. And it won't be overwhelming forever. I just really want to say I appreciate people who are holding this space for this to come up to the surface realm of truth and being aired in really public places. It's overdue, and everybody listening is part of disclosure. So thank you so much.